Welcome to the Rise to the Challenge podcast. Joined today, she's a former teacher and digital content creator on Onlyfans. It's Sarah Juree. How are you doing today, Sarah?
Hi, I am so excited to be on your podcast. Thank you for inviting me.
We're so excited to have you on the show to talk about your rise to the challenge. What we like to do with all of our guests is go right to the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what did you like doing growing up?
Oh, that's a good question. Growing up, I was like tomboy. So I loved sports, playing sports, basketball. I had 3 older brothers growing up. So I was the kid outside, chasing my older brothers, trying to do all the fun stuff they did. So
Did you guys kind of have like a competitive atmosphere, like fun competition anytime you guys were playing outside and things like that?
My brothers were a little older, so 4, 6, and 8 years older. So, I was probably more the annoying little sister than anything.
What did you like about basketball?
I was just always a naturally athletic kid. So I was not, I came from, parents that didn't make very much money, so I wasn't the kid that got the fancy like sports sessions and training, but I was just athletic. So I think that just kind of it was fun. And I just loved it. I was a kid that would just be outside playing basketball by myself.
You talked about growing up with parents that financially weren't as stable or things like that. Did that have to teach you about being able to step up in a role or be able to take more responsibilities to help out in certain situations?
Yeah, that's such a good question because even as adult, so much of your life really stems from your childhood and things that happened in your childhood. So to give you a little bit of my backstory, my dad was an abusive alcoholic. And later on in life, I actually found out he was addicted to heroin. And he lived in a park in Phoenix right before he died. He died when I was 16. So that's kind of going to give you a little bit of insight to this issue of like growing up in a poverty cycle. My parents split up when I was in 3rd grade, but my mom then became a single mom stuck in a poverty cycle. So we moved to Indiana. I lived with my grandparents. So I think when you are a child that grows up in a home with parents who are unhealed, who had their own traumas, it does, first of all, it sort of deregulates your nervous system so that you find ways to cope as a kid. And my way of coping was to just be the perfect daughter. I was the hyper responsible straight A student in sports, never got in trouble, never snuck out of the house, was in bed by 9 o'clock as a teenager. So that was sort of how I grew up, but with a sense of being more mature for my age than maybe other kids.
Do you feel that put a lot of pressure on you? Did it ever get too much for you in those scenarios?
Yeah, I think looking back, when you're a kid, you don't ever know any different. However you grew up, whatever lifestyle your parents give you, you just assume that's life and that's how everybody lives. So you don't have any perspective on it. So I think now as an adult looking back, I definitely see the ways that the trauma from my childhood affected me then and even in ways now.
You talked about the trauma. I've had my scenarios with that with my dad where alcohol played a big effect. And I think a lot of times my family members are like, oh, well, don't be like him and stuff. And they didn't trust me in those situations, especially right before going to college, where that's the big time where alcohol, drugs, and things like that. And I go,
Yeah.
I see what that goes on, and I don't want to be like that. So I
Yeah.
knew I had the mindset, but anytime I see like friends and stuff, I always go back to those moments with my dad, and I try to be protective of them in those situations.
It's so true. And just being the daughter of an alcoholic, and my dad was abusive alcoholic. So he was mean when he drank alcohol. I think that does something to you too when you see a totally different personality change.
Yeah.
So then I also became afraid of alcohol. I didn't drink alcohol in my adulthood. Now I will have a glass of wine maybe once a week or something, but I've always remained very cognizant of alcohol because that when you see it from the perspective of a child, um, often people kind of lean the way we did, which was, I'd rather just abstain. I don't want anything to
Yeah.
do with it. In some ways, your role models become doing exactly the opposite of whatever your parents did. So it's like, whatever they were doing, I'm just going to do the opposite and I might
Yeah.
be okay.
Did this give you an opportunity to really bond with your mom with going through everything? Like, were you close to her?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, I guess I would say no. I feel like in the abuse that my mom had with my dad, I feel like she really became depressed. She shut down in a lot of ways. Um, and I feel almost like I was parental
Mm-hmm.
in the relationship. So I wish that I had a story where I didn't have a strong relationship with my dad, but with my mom. I didn't so much, but it's interesting because both of my parents have passed now. My dad when I was 16 and my mom about 4 years ago. And I think the older you get, you sort of um, try to have some empathy for your parents for all of their unhealed wounds that they were sort of acting out um, during your childhood. So, um, I wish I had different modeling and different parental relationships, but you know, there's always lessons to be learned from your parents either way.
I agree. Yeah. Sometimes I even look back, it's like, could I have done anything differently to help in a situation? But you have to keep going forward and try to make the best of every situation now.
Yes, moving forward positively is my motto.
Sometimes we're asked that fun question, what is our dream job? As you were growing up, what was that dream job for you?
It's funny. I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to be an aerobics instructor. And I did become a teacher and I got certified in group fitness a couple years ago. So sometimes those childhood dreams do manifest. So I guess I did fulfill both of them. And now I'm in a totally different profession I never dreamed of.
Was there a teacher that you had that kind of sparked that interest of wanting to be a teacher?
Yeah, so I had a lot of exceptional teachers. I think lots and lots of teachers go into it for the right reasons. They have the heart for kids. And I was the kid that was always pleasure to have in class, So teachers really liked me because I never gave them any problems. But I had lots of really great, exceptional, kind teachers that definitely made a difference. And I think because of my childhood, school became a very safe place for me to find uh, validation
Mm-hmm.
and get maybe attention that I didn't receive at home. So I became very good at school because I liked the accolades and I liked the good the good attention that I got from my teachers. So
When you were at school and with your friends, were you open to them about what you were going through, or did you kind of try to keep it separate and not reveal much?
oh, that's a great question. So it was weird because when I moved to Indiana, my grandparents were more middle class.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, I went from like a low income, crazy, chaotic house in Arizona to a very religious, middle class subdivision life. So, in some ways, I think with certain friends, I did try to assimilate to my friends that maybe had more stable and functioning lives that I kind of segued into because of my grandparents when we moved in with them. But you know, over the years, you get a mix of friends that some have just as much dysfunction at home, and you share those things. So I feel like in some ways I sort of had a dual life, um, experiencing both sides of the coins, but trying to figure it all out for myself and where I fit in.
What is it hard going from Arizona or Indiana from a different side, like going from heat to the Midwest where any weather could happen?
Yes, one, I've still never gotten used to the weather, but two, just in a just looking back in my childhood, like going from a home of mom and dad and three brothers, my brothers did not come with us because they were my half brothers.
Okay.
So when we moved here, it was just my sister and I and my mom. So there was that sense of like my family got ripped apart,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I'm living with grandma and grandpa, and you know, there just wasn't I don't think counseling or therapy was as mainstream then.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would have probably benefited for me to have gotten some therapy during that time, because that was a big transition and there's a lot of confusion when you're a kid. But when nobody talks about it, it's just like, oh, we just packed up and moved. You just follow your parents' leads.
Are you close to those half brothers now, or did it take some time to like get reconnected and things like that?
That's a good question. No, unfortunately, my brothers, I sort of, when my dad died when I was in high school, because they were kind of so much older than me, I became more estranged from them then. And then my sister, after my mom died, I became estranged from her. So in this scenario, which might explain some stuff too about what's happening in my life, um, like I've really been essentially on my own without any family support. So
Going towards now teaching, did you go to college? Where did you go? Things like that. How was that experience for you? Did you kind of even get more excited about going pursuing education?
yeah, well, with growing up with my parents, seeing my mom struggle so much as a single mom, and I was always really good at school, it was a very natural thing to just know that I was going to go to college. And in my mind, college was the ultimate poverty cycle breaker, right? It was like, if I just go and get this degree, um, I'll always be able to financially take care of myself. So I ended up going to a local college in Indiana, a local branch of Indiana University. And I didn't have, you know, the typical college life. but also I was like hyper responsible. So I was the kid who worked and put myself to college, and I lived at home when I did that. So I couldn't tell you one college party that I went to because I didn't. I was just working and I went to school and I was just very, very driven, getting that, like nothing else mattered but getting my degree. And I was, out of the 5 children, only 2 of us graduated from college. So I'm first generation college graduate, and then only 2 out of the 5 of us got a bachelor's degree.
And I feel like when you mentioned I didn't go, or I don't remember going to a party, or I didn't, and I feel like that's the kind of the motto is, if I'm going to college, I have to go to that party and things like that. But some people do the route that you took, where you're working to put yourself through college. You're so focused at the task at hand, and that shows a lot of good qualities about yourself, because you can take those same qualities and move it towards the future. And it just showcases where people go to college. And I have friends that they only went to college to party, and wasn't a good end game. But they now look back at that and they're like, I wish I did it differently. I wish I was more focused. And so I give you the credit that you put yourself through college and you went and got it.
I did. It's funny though, now that I'm older, because looking back, I do wish I would have taken things a little less seriously and had more fun, not just like the party scene, but just more like being social and going out and dancing. And, I never really let myself be playful. I was always like a very serious kid. So it's only now that I've gotten older that I've sort of tapped into being more playful, understanding that life's not as serious. I don't have to be hyper serious all the time. And that I can just sort of experience some of the joy that I didn't have as a kid. So I know it's weird, but the older I get, the more I kind of am like aging in reverse, where I'm like, you know what? If you don't take some time to have some fun and find some joy in life, then it's going to pass by.
I totally agree. I was serious in college and I joined like a fraternity and stuff. And I'm like, I can't be that party person. But I look back and I'm like, I wish I was less serious and I just enjoyed it and stopped being focused about stuff.
Yes.
And nowadays I'm like the complete opposite, where I'm like, I'm going to go and have fun. Like life's or you got to just enjoy every day.
Same.
So as a teacher, what level did you teach and where did you teach at? You don't have to get the specifics, but like which grade level, things like that.
Yeah. So I tried traditional teaching in a public school, and that kind of ended pretty shortly for me. It was really stressful. There were a lot of I was working in a sort of a poverty school, and there were just some behaviors like that weren't good, and kids flipping their desk, and it just wasn't a good, healthy first job. Mm-hmm. So I sort of quickly realized, okay, I don't like this. I can't go home and cry every day after work. But what happened was my path opened up to informal education. So what happened was a local hospital had a health kids museum, and I started teaching field trips, and I loved it. It was so fun, and it was sort of like being the aunt of teaching. The kids would come, we'd have fun with them and send them back with their teachers. So I did that for about 8 years. That was almost a decade. And that was when I fell in love with informal education. So I sort of worked my way up from teacher to lead teacher to curriculum and evaluation specialist. Then I had my own kids and worked on a couple research projects at the University of Notre Dame for a couple years, but I really longed and missed teaching and the fun of teaching. I'm not cut out for a desk job. So there was a new program that was coming to town, which with a similar format, teaching science, technology, engineering, and math. And I was there for 6 years before I got fired. So again, I sort of stayed in informal education, teaching field trips, but it was fun. I loved it. And I loved my last job as well.
What's the biggest thing working in education has taught you about yourself?
Oh gosh, so many things. I think patience. I think it showed me that I have a lot of patience, like teachers typically do, you know.
Yeah.
And in my journey, especially the last several years, I have been more on a spiritual path for myself, doing a lot of healing work from my childhood. And I really started getting into manifesting and positive affirmations, the power of positive thinking. And so I really wanted to incorporate that into my classroom. And I wanted my classroom to be joyful experience for my students. And I would always tell them, because I taught fifth graders, that I wanted their time in my classroom to be their favorite memory from fifth grade. That when they thought about being in my classroom, it just brought a smile to their face and they remembered having fun. Because I think you forget as teachers that they will totally forget everything academically that they learn, but kids will always remember how you made them feel and what the culture of the classroom was. They will never forget that.
Was there a specific moment that a student that has said about their time in your class that
Yeah,
resonated for you?
so many kids. So in my program, I taught about 1,000 students a year. So yeah, we would bring in students for like 5-week programs. And so I actually taught a lot of students, and at the end of their visit, we would do a big slideshow with fun pictures of all the fun stuff they did with us. And they would write little slips of their time and what they liked, and were they more excited about STEM than before they came. And you know, kids would just write the sweetest things. And so I would keep those little slips of paper at my desk. Sometimes I'd hang them up because, you know, there were lots of kids that I specifically connected with, and they enjoyed my energy and my smile and my style of teaching. So, you know, I think that was very affirming to me, that when you're in a job and you're in a job where you're working out of your very best strengths, it really it is a catalyst to making a difference for people, because I really loved teaching and I really loved being in that classroom. And I think kids can tell when you are genuine and you want to be there, and you like being around them. And fifth graders are fun. They are at that age of you can actually, they have a sense of humor, you know, so you can sort of tease them. And they are that fun age where they still, some of them still really like, they really like their teachers still.
Mm-hmm.
And but they're like getting older, so they're all into the cool stuff.
Yeah.
So you can, you know, anything that was trendy, like Fortnite and Takis and just not the dab is not cool, but when I started, it was cool. You know, it's like those kids would like teach you all the things that they liked and how to make you cooler and stuff like that. So I'm trying to think. Oh, last year, the kids, I told them, I said, you know, as a teacher, I teach you new vocabulary. I was teaching them about chromatography and solvents and solutes. And the kids taught me about bussin'. So sometimes as a teacher, you teach them things and sometimes they teach you things. And I would always use that to break the ice with other classes. And my own kids now are in 5th grade. So it's a fun age. I really liked that specific age of kids.
A big moment in the final years of teaching for you had a big transition time. Talk about that last year for you as a teacher before you got fired. What was going on and how did everything reveal itself?
Oh, that's such a good question. So what happened was I became a single mom. So I was living in a really high rent apartment, and my employer didn't offer health insurance. So between my rent and my health insurance, that equated to a whole paycheck.
Wow.
So what happened was, all of a sudden, as a single mom, I start getting into this poverty cycle myself. So, like, talk about being very triggered from my childhood, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the last 2 years, I had worked really hard on my health. I've lost a lot of weight, and like I told you, I got certified in group exercise. So I became friends with a lot of women who are entrepreneurs, and they started their own businesses. So what I started doing was starting side hustles for myself. And I had a friend that had a salon. She got me trained on teeth whitening, so I did that for a while. But I wasn't really making any real good income. So then I purchased sublimation equipment, and I trained myself how to make shirts and tumblers and mugs, and I started doing design work. Sometimes I would like do logo work for people. So I started that business. Then I started doing reading tutoring on the side. I did keto coaching on the side. I worked out with people and they would pay me for working out with them on the side. I sold poppets. I I looked for every opportunity that I could find to supplement my income. Mm-hmm. So I was constantly working all the time, plus trying to work out, plus raising my kids. So there were times this last school year, we had to do an after school program for part of the year as well. So I would teach all day. I would go to the after school program. I would come home. I would tutor reading. And then I would make shirts until bedtime. So all day and all night, I was literally working. And I was just really being crushed financially. And it was really heartbreaking because for the first time in my life, there wasn't an equivalency to my hard work and the success I was having. So I was working so hard, but spinning my wheels in a poverty cycle. $20 here, $20 there. And then, as we all know, inflation really hit. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, gas prices got really, really high in the spring. Well, then groceries got high, and there were times that I would buy groceries for my kids from the Dollar Tree. Well, now all of a sudden, even the Dollar Tree's $1.25.
Yep.
So with my job too, I only got a raise every 3 years. So I was stuck in this poverty cycle. And, you know, there were times that I would sob in the bathtub. And my kids started calling me sad mommy. So, oh my gosh, I usually don't cry on podcasts.
It's all good.
But so essentially that was what was happening, was I was just under a lot of financial pressure with feeling like there was no real way out. So a local friend, a mom in town, had posted on her Facebook page that she had started an Onlyfans account, and she had shown that she had made $10,000 on the page. Well, you have to remember that I've been doing a lot of entrepreneurial stuff the last 2 years. So I was like, man, if I could just have a couple months of making that money, I could pay my credit cards off. I got in so much credit card debt that I had to sell my car back to the bank. So I really wanted to buy my car back.
Mm-hmm.
So I had these financial goals for myself. And at work, I finished the school year. I opened my OnlyFans account. I had 2 weeks off of work. So I was like, okay, I'm going to open my OnlyFans account. I didn't do too much on it. But then I had to go back to work for 3 weeks to run summer camps. So I went back for 3 weeks, ran the summer camps, and then I was going to have the month of July off of work. So my plan was during July, try out OnlyFans, see if I'm able to get some income going for myself, and see what happened before I went back to work in August. And the very last day of summer camp, we were having a casual conversation in the office. And my coworker was talking about her husband going on a bachelor party trip to North or South Carolina. And she was saying that at the bachelor party, they had hired a stripper, and the stripper charged $600 just to show up to the party. No tips, nothing. My boss and I were listening to the story, and we were like, wow, that's really good money. And my coworker says, yeah, I'm thinking of starting an OnlyFans account, but maybe I'll have my husband do it first and basically test the waters because gay men love him. So we're having this casual conversation. We're laughing about this. And then my boss says, yeah, you guys, you too should start an OnlyFans account and sell your panties on OnlyFans. Men love panties, and you would make a lot of money selling panties. Well, I'm entrepreneurial. So if my boss just gave me the green light to pursue OnlyFans, I took that to heart. I started promoting my page, and then that was actually what led to my firing.
So with the OnlyFans account, was it everything you thought it was going to be like?
That is such an interesting question, because before I got fired, I had only had it a couple weeks. So it wasn't like I was an established content maker, or I knew what I was doing, or I had found success on the platform. I really had no idea what I was getting into, other than I thought it would just be an easy way to sell some pictures and make some side money. That was like literally my entire objective. I didn't go into it with any grandiose ideas. Um, but again, I've also been single for the last 5 years. So there's nothing that I've done on OnlyFans that I wasn't doing on dating sites.
Yeah.
So not really. It's interesting to me that people have a very strong trigger to OnlyFans, but not to the fact that people are using people on dating sites and the hookup culture. Dating sites, in my opinion, are way worse than OnlyFans, way more predatory. And I will say that I have a lot of positive things to say about OnlyFans. And my fans and the men I've met on OnlyFans are some of the kindest, most empathetic men that I've ever come across. So that's such an interesting question, because now, having been on the platform for several months, I really have only good things to say about the people that are on OnlyFans, and that the platform, if people were more open-minded about the platform itself, could be used in a very healing way for people. Virtual sex has a great there's a great use for that platform for people to manage their sexual energy in very responsible ways, unlike dating sites. And it's interesting because I've been celibate for most of my 5 years being single, and I'm still celibate with an OnlyFans page. So it's just interesting to me, the different people that I've met and the different reasons people are on OnlyFans. But there's no stigma around dating sites because they're packaged as dating. But my experiences on dating sites were far worse as a woman. So there's all these like really interesting dynamics that I have found personally being on the platform. So in a lot of ways, the OnlyFans platform has been actually a really good experience. Surprisingly, like I didn't know anything about OnlyFans, honestly, other than my friend joined it. She made a lot of money, and so I just hopped on without doing very much research about it.
Something that OnlyFans has a topic in the media is where we only hear the negatives. But when someone searches your name, you come up in a lot of articles with the whole OnlyFans account, teacher gets fired. But as we're doing this interview, a lot of the information you talk about aren't in those articles, which is obviously they are trying to make you look as a bad person. How does that play an effect mentally? Because mental health is a big thing. And when you're seeing those articles, it's not healthy at all.
No, it was very, very hard on my mental health. And you have to understand, with my backstory, when you were asking me about what was happening the last year, my financial struggles were creating a lot of depression and suicidal ideation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when these stories came out about me, and I'm a very like sensitive person, they were devastating. A lot of stories created just for clickbait.
Yep.
And I was suicidal right after it all happened. It was very, very hard on my mental health. The blogger who got me fired also stole images from my OnlyFans page, and I was a victim of revenge porn. He distributed nude photos all over Facebook and Twitter of me. So all of a sudden, I go from being a private citizen, just a mom who's teaching, to being thrust into the media, having the worst kinds of accusations. I've been called a groomer. And not only the media articles, but comments from people. Those are the worst, you
Yep.
know. So there were times where I would go and read comments about myself, and it was really heartbreaking. It really hurt my heart. And the media does a good job dehumanizing people and being divisive, you know. So when I go on podcasts, it's like everyone has a story. Everyone has a story that would break your heart if you heard it, you
Mhm.
know. So this idea of dehumanizing people is very, it's very tragic, especially with social media, because it's very divisive and it creates this illusion that we're separate from other people. So contrary to how a lot of the articles portrayed me, um, I, you know, didn't go into OnlyFans to be a porn star. I never promoted OnlyFans in the classroom when in fact, I had my OnlyFans page when I did summer camp, and I have a text from my old boss about how great summer camps went. And I ran into a parent whose daughter was in the summer camp with me, and she knew what had happened and read about it. I'm from a small town, and she was so sweet and kind and supportive, and she told me how much her daughter loved being in my class and loved summer camp. And um, it it has taught me so much about my own resiliency. It's taught me about remaining kind and empathetic in a world that will just tear people apart. This whole cancel culture.
Yep.
You know, it's like growing up in trauma. I have always been very empathetic and kind to people because it's my own mental health struggles. It's very important to me that I don't traumatize people more. So I've always wanted to be like a safe place for people, a landing place for their hearts, a person whose uh, their heart is safe with me. So I feel even more committed to this, especially being dragged through the media the way that I have been. So actually on my OnlyFans page, I talk a lot about mental health, especially with men. Men don't always talk about mental health. And truthfully, my OnlyFans page is probably more of a mental health, there's more of a mental health component than people realize. People are very lonely in this world. People suffer silently. And even on my page, I want to be a kind person, a kind woman to the fans that join my page. So, you know, even my Instagram platforms, I feel like doubled down in my efforts to continue shining a positive light. Even despite everything that I've gone through, it makes me more determined, because the easy path is to be a wounded individual and to go through trauma and heartbreak and grief that we all go through. It's the human experience, no one escapes it.
Mhm.
But to remain soft and empathetic and kind and loving to people, that is strength. That is strength. You know, to alchemize your traumas and your childhood experiences and to work on healing yourself. It really liberates other people to find healing and joy in their life despite things they've gone through and experiences. So it was very painful. It was very, very traumatic. I am very thankful that I didn't commit suicide because it was a real thought. There was a lot of humiliation that I endured.
Have you been able to be open with your kids about the platform and how you're utilizing it as an empowerment in a way that a lot of creators on that platform aren't doing?
Yes. At first, it was really hard to tell my kids that mommy wasn't a teacher anymore because I waited 6 years for my kids to come to the program and be in mommy's classroom. And that was supposed to happen this year. And it was all we talked about last year was, you guys are going to finally be in 5th grade and you'll be in mommy's room. So there was a lot that was taken from me. 20-year career, my kids being in my class after waiting all these years, teaching other kids. But it gave me a different perspective because I was really struggling with suicide, that my kids need me and I have to continue showing up in the most emotionally available capacity that I can for them. So they know I'm on Onlyfans, but I still try to keep it pretty private. However, they know I'm in the news, they know I'm in the media. I've just kind of told my kids, like, listen, I'm in the news. I'll never be able to scrub the internet. But it is important for me to continue doing things like these podcasts because it's my voice, it's my story, it's my narrative, and I never want to give power up to other people to write a story about me. My life and my story is the most powerful thing that I have. And I did an Instagram live the other day and I said, listen, we all have parts of our stories that are very dark. You feel shame, you feel grief or sadness, or it's the part of your story you don't want to share with people. But those stories are so important that you do share, because those are the stories that connect humans to each other. When you share your story, you liberate other people in their stories so they don't feel so alone, where you're like, yeah, I had a traumatic childhood. I was a struggling single mom trying to get out of a poverty cycle. Yes, I've struggled with depression. Yes, I've struggled with suicidal ideation. As soon as you say those words, other people feel less alone. My story is the story of so many other people. So when I share my story, not only do I get to help heal myself, but I get to liberate other people in their healing. So it's a gift.
I totally agree. I think a lot of people sometimes they don't know how to speak about certain things that they're going through, but when they hear someone else share it, they know that they're not alone. And sometimes that person will reach out to that individual and say, I heard your story. It was inspiring. You helped me go through this. And I think that's the power. And I totally agree that everyone should be given that opportunity to share. And that's how I use this platform. Everyone has a story. It could be the tiniest thing, it could be the largest thing, but there's someone out there listening that might be going through that same thing. And maybe they need to hear that person talk, or it's inspiring them to be able to be open about it. So I appreciate you being so open about it, because like you said, someone could hear this and it could help them.
Yeah, I hope it does. Like, that's really genuinely my mission is to turn this experience that was almost sent to destroy me, alchemize it into positivity and hope and inspiration for other people. So I feel very committed to that and sharing my story. I hope to write a book someday and really do a lot more advocacy work to help give people a voice that maybe feel like they don't have a voice, because I feel like there's almost no situation that someone's going through that I haven't gone through myself and understand that. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate every person and journalist and podcast that gives me a platform that humanizes me instead of puts me as a headline that's just so easy to categorize into some villainous mode that I'm really not. Nobody really is. We all have our struggles, and so I'm deeply appreciative, and it's been a humbling because my story has made its way around the world, and I have fans from all over the world and followers on my Instagram page, and it's cool because I get to meet all these people I never would have met without this experience, and just share my story with them and feel really supported by other people who understand that I was just trying to do the best I could as a mom. When you're a single parent, you're a provider and protector. So that essentially was what I was trying to do, was provide for my kids, because my parents' divorce was so traumatic. Like, we literally jumped out of a window, my mom and my sister and I, while my dad was like banging on the door, beating her up. And so I never wanted my children to go through a divorce. In fact, I waited 8 years in my marriage before I even had children, because I was so nervous about never wanting my kids to have a divorce. And then here I am, a single mom in a divorce situation. It really broke my heart. And because my childhood was so traumatic, I wanted to give my kids this beautiful, stable, happy childhood. I still want that for them. And I think OnlyFans felt like a means to that. Like, if I'm on OnlyFans, I could take my kids to Disney World, and I could give them more stability and also take financial stress off of me so that I wasn't sad mommy all the time. They deserve the healthiest, happiest, most emotionally available mom that I can be to them. So, I feel like essentially motherhood is my highest calling, and I love my kids dearly. I would do literally anything for them, even starting an OnlyFans account to get us out of the situation we were in. So, at the end of the day, that really was my driving motivator. It wasn't to be deviant or, to be a bad teacher or, influence kids in any negative way. It just unfortunately brings up a lot of conversations about teacher pay, and it's not so much that I can make way more on OnlyFans, but the conversation really is, why was I not able to have a good living as a teacher with a college degree? So I had a job where I was using my intelligence and my heart and my soul, but I was living in a poverty cycle. But as a woman, I can take my clothes off and make 5 to 8 times what I was making teaching because I have a body. It doesn't make any sense. There's a big disconnect there for me. But at the end of the day, that's the reality, and that's the system that was set up. So I'm just trying to um, capitalize financially on this experience, truthfully.
The final question I'll ask you, for someone that's listening to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give them to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
I would say prioritize your mental health, whatever that means. It might mean that you have to leave a marriage. It might mean that you have to leave a job. But you need to take care of yourself first. Because without your mental health, you are nothing. You are nothing. So for me, I've had to prioritize my mental health by going to the gym every day. I have to go to the gym. Gym therapy has been more productive in my healing than talk therapy. I did a lot of talk therapy, but the gym therapy where I've had to cultivate a mental toughness and also benefit from a lot of the endorphins and good chemicals that are created when you work out that you're really depleted in when you're depressed. And I understand when you're depressed, like there were days I would be in bed till 5 p.m., but there has to be something inside of you that makes yourself get up and go take care of yourself, even if it's little baby steps at first, because sometimes that's all you have the emotional energy for. But you have to remember that there's a higher version of yourself that's beckoning for you to rise into. You are, you are, it is your divine birthright to experience abundance and peace and joy and harmony in your life. You deserve that. You deserve all of those things. You deserve the best things. So I think, positive affirmations, taking extreme care of yourself, your mental health, your physical health, and prioritizing those things above anything, because you can get through anything in life. There's nothing that you're not resilient enough to go through. And when I go to the gym, I tell myself, I am blessed and unstoppable, and I am built for this. And just by telling those things, reframing my story, I'm very big into like rewriting your narrative. I'm rewriting my story as we speak because I'm determined to have a happy ending for myself. I will not give power to other people to write my story for me because I am the author of my story and my story's not over. There's a lot of goodness that I have left to give to the world. I have a bright light and positive energy, and it's in all of us. So that would be my hope for everyone listening, is that you just keep that little tiny packet of light and joy and hope alive. Just don't ever let anyone squash it, because you just need a little bit to keep going, and just keep dreaming the most beautiful, brilliant dreams. My daughter, a couple years ago, wrote on a dollar bill, "Millionaire Mama," and I keep that dollar bill, and I just know that that's going to manifest for me someday. So, sometimes we go through experiences that are very painful and very traumatic, and they hurt our heart and soul. But you can endure them and use those experiences to just stay kind and stay loving, and be a little kinder to yourself and other people, because you don't know what other people's stories are.
Yep. Well, Sarah, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. You're inspiring so many people, and we're excited to see what the future looks like for you.
Thank you, Alex. I am so grateful to be on your podcast. I wish you so much success, and definitely share the link. I'll share it along my socials. And if anyone listening to the podcast would like to join my OnlyFans, let me know that you're coming from this podcast, and I will. I'll make a discount code just for you guys. So